Hello, and welcome to Dente, Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. Tonight we have Between Ice and Stars. So, Between Ice and Stars is by MrDupin from Creepypasta.wikia. We've actually done a story of his before. It was Of Blood, Gold, and Holy Light. It was the werewolf one, where the werewolf puppies were coming out of people's mouths.
That one! I remember.
The gothic horror, it was basically a gothic horror TPK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see what he does in this one. So, in the rundown, Captain Gerald Northington and his crew on the HMS Stargazer find themselves trapped in ice in Antarctica in 1905. And that means, the ship is stuck in ice. Not that they are trapped in ice, like frozen.
They're not prehistoric Iceman situation.
No, they weren't frozen today.
It's 1905. They're in Antarctica on a ship.
And their ship is stuck in the ice. So they are trapped on the ice.
Yes.
They had sent a hunting party out to find seal meat, but the group was delayed, and when they got back, they had a corpse of a man rather than seals. Apparently, while
not just any man, it's one of their crewmen.
one of their crewmen. Apparently, while hunting a seal, they split up, and Jacob Hopkins, the man who died, went missing. They discovered him near a large cave next to a frozen lake that they'd been hunting the seals on. He was frozen with a grimace of insanity on his face and clutching a black stone statuette of some anthropomorphic creature. The doctor on board placed his death as a heart attack, and he was stored in the storage bay until the morning where they could bury him. The next morning, they discovered the body was missing and the room was in shambles. After a day of searching, they called it off for the evening. That night, the doctor, as well as the cook, heard a strange chanting noise on the ship, and with only lanterns as light, searched out the sounds in the bowels of the ship. It was there they discovered that 5 crazed crewmen were performing horrific rites about the statuette and the dismembered body of Jacob. Noticed, the cook was attacked and brutally killed, while the doctor fled and sounded the captain and his first mate, Will Ward, with his screams. The captain and Ward go down to where the cultists are and dispose of them, though not without rolling some sand checks. They then obtain the statuette, which gives them visions of returning it to the cave. Followed by the doctor, the captain and Ward leave the ship, while the rest of the crew, who seem to have been indoctrinated by the statue's power now, follow and occasionally attempt to strike at them, though the crew remains on the ship as the men and the statue, or the men with the statue, venture off into the tundra. Reaching the cave, they find the route Jacob had taken to get the statue and discover an ancient eldritch tomb with 2 sarcophaguses, one black, one white.
Sarcophagi?
I don't think...
Is it? I honestly don't know.
When I typed in sarcophaguses, it immediately just told me to just use sarcophagus. No. So I think it's actually just sarcophagus is plural and singular.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's also etchings and artifacts of some long-lost Cyclopean civilization with these anthropomorphic creatures that were the statue's kind of prominently about. As the captain returns the statue into its place, Ward, in a moment of folly, opens the lid of the white sarcophagus, and a claw lashes out and impales him. The eldritch creature, vaguely anthropomorphic, gets out of the sarcophagus and goes to the black sarcophagus, and opens it to reveal another, though much beefier creature.
Does it say that they're eldritch creatures?
Well, they're I'm just saying eldritch in that they are they're ancient and monstrous, because they are kind of ancient and monstrous. I'm just using that as my own term for them.
Fair enough.
They're ancient aliens.
Yeah, basically, they're kind of like a weird Lovecraftian alien creature.
Yeah.
Who proceeds to grab the cap? So the black, the one from the black sarcophagus grabs the captain, slits his throat, and unleashes tiny insects into the wound.
Like through an alien-esque...
Weird, proboscis thing.
Yeah.
At this point, the doctor nopes out of the cave. He gets up to the surface. However, on the ice of the frozen lake, the doctor finds a terribly massive creature pulling itself out of the ice, breaking through, and going skyward. And then he also notices around at this whole point...
Does it go skyward?
It ascends up into the sky. Also, the sky is starless. Like, it's a black sky, like starless sky. The doctor also sees multiple red lines streaking down to the earth as he witnesses more of these creatures descending upon the earth. At this point, the captain calls for him, trying to pick the doctor up and getting his attention. But at that moment, the doctor witnesses the captain's eyes are alien for an instant before they revert to normal. And in a fit of insanity, nopes off into the tundra where presumably death claims him. Like the cold and stuff claims him. And that is between ice and stars. So, it is on to everyone tolerates the Grandma Inquisitions! We tracked it down and we decided to split in order to flank it. I believe you want split up in order to flank it? Because we decided to split in order to flank it. It's like, kind of gives the impression that they fled away from it rather than split around, like split up. Like, we decided to split in order to get away.
Yeah, but I don't think that was a term back in the 1900s.
No, exactly. So I feel like it's just missing up. Like, we decided to split up in order to flank it.
No, I'm saying, like, your assumption of them saying, like, we got to split, that's not something that would be said back then?
Obviously, yeah.
This is written in character.
Yeah. That is true.
So split can only mean divide.
Yes.
Like, their group has to split.
I get that. I was making the funny with the whole, like, it's time to split, because that's what the impression I got from that. But I think it's supposed to mean that, like, we decided to split up. Like, it just needs the up. Yeah.
There's no harm putting the up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is, the door was open, and the two men sent alongside Dr. Edgar were stood at either side of the doorframe. I believe were standing at either side of the doorframe.
Yeah, because you already have the past tense of were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember...
We're stood at the... yeah, just... What?
Yeah, I remember stumbling on that a little bit, too.
Yeah. Next one here. A sailor, his clothes rugged and torn, walked out on all fours and stared at them. His eyes bright with madness before galloping towards them with a wild screech. I believe that you wanted... his clothes were ragged and torn, not rugged and torn.
Because ragged were rugged.
Yeah, I mean, they could be rugged, but I feel like ragged is probably the correct term.
Because it's combined with torn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they were in rags, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
The two men stood on top of it in silence. I don't think you want on top, because this is in regards to them, like, standing on top of the statuette. I think that you want, like, about or around it. Just to, like... Because, like, again, this is really nitpicky. I will fully admit it is nitpicky. Like, they're on top of it because, like, they're standing above it. Even above it would work better. But, like, when I read, like, they're standing on top of it, it seems that they're, like, literally standing on it, not around it.
Wait, who was standing on it?
So the captain and ward stood on top of the statuette in silence.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, so I feel like it should be either above, about, or around it. Any of those would work for like that instead of on top of. The next one. Some were standing in fields, others above the walls of a divine palace, others were riding chariots, and others were operating machines of technology far advanced. So the last two uses of other in this, I would actually change or like add on to. So it would read like, some were standing in fields, others above the walls of a divine palace. More were riding chariots, and others still were operating machines of technology far advanced, just to kind of break up the repetition and monotony of using other like 4 times.
Yeah.
And my final grammar position, it towered over the captain, who could only stare in disbelief as a long claw striked his neck, cleanly cutting flesh and skin. I believe he once, as a long claw struck his neck. Just for the like past tense, or like just for the tense issue, because striked his neck doesn't sound good to me. Like if I'm being honest,
Slashed.
Yeah, that would work as well. Yes,
Strike like
striked is like struck like it's like a strike.
As you do a slash motion with your hand.
Yes, but I mean, strike is technically also is also a descriptor for that action.
Yeah, but I can strike you with a baseball bat too.
That's true.
It's
a very vague thing. Yeah. So yeah, slash would work just as well, or slice.
Because when it
sliced his neck. Yeah,
yes, of course. But like when it went struck, I didn't know immediately that it was a cut that happened. Mm-hmm. I thought like he got punched first, and then reading
cleanly cutting flesh.
Then later, as it says, like bleeding and all that, like then it cuts. I get it.
It does say long claw, so what claw implies that it's sharp, not a fist.
Yeah, but I can have claws and then backhand you.
You can,
or punch you.
Then you need to rewrite that entire part.
My point is the same point as yours.
Yeah,
struck is a little too vague.
Yes,
when it's clearly doing a slashing or a slicing motion.
Yeah, right. But that's the end of my grammar positions. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil. What do you got?
I have a front butt.
Ooh,
it's been a while since we've had a front butt.
Mm-hmm.
But worst of all was the scattering of footsteps echoing unnaturally outside his room, as if crabs were skipping their way across the wooden floor.
Yeah. I also just love that sentence. As if crabs were skipping. That puts like a creepy like image in my head. I can only imagine what he's thinking from that descriptor.
Yes. And then I have an it story, but I needed to use dialogue to make it actually be long enough to be
worth the while.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You did that last time too, and it made it better.
Mm-hmm. And now, an it story with Mikey. The E stands for evil. Take it away.
It was too late. It's coming from below deck, sir. Ward spoke, and the 2 men ran after the sound. It moved clankily towards the black sarcophagus, and with a swift motion it threw the lid away. Then it waited. It towered over the captain, who could only stare in disbelief as a long claw struck his neck, cleanly cutting flesh and skin. Its onyx black skin seemed to eat away at the surrounding light, while its lidless eyes gleamed a malevolent white. "It cannot be," he whispered, strands of insanity beginning to slither in his mind.
Wow. Pretty condensed. Like, it wasn't until the very end that all those its came into play. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, do you have anything on?
I know you've got the other ones.
Okay. Gamer, do you got anything? Any grammar in yellow?
I got a little bit.
Nice.
Supplies were running thin, and the captain of the ship, a tall, clean-shaven gentleman by the name of Gerald Northington, had assembled groups of hunters to venture out in search of seal meat. So, I feel it's a bit long.
Yeah, that's what like as you were reading, I was like, "What's?" Oh, okay. It's kind of like is that all one sentence?
Mm-hmm. And it has an odd lack of a comma before the captain. So what I would do is I would combine it with the previous one, because like the captain part, it's like supplies were running thin, and the captain of the ship. It's saying like supplies were running thin, and also the captain of the ship was running thin.
The captain's thinning out a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Put some meat on those bones.
So the way I would combine it is HMS Stargazer, crew, blah, 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 blah. Winter quickly set upon them, comma, instead of a period. They found themselves trapped between stars and ice for months. Or wait. The period? Zoom. Enhance. That's a period. Okay. Yeah, so they found themselves trapped between stars and ice for months, and supplies were running thin, period. So it's talking about their situation, supplies, and then right there, the captain of the ship, a tall, thin, blah, 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 going from there. So it's sectioned out into different...
Break it up a little bit,
Yeah. They were all his responsibility. And he had vowed to return each and every one of them safe to their homes. I think everyone is used in the wrong way, because it's everyone instead of every one. Isn't that how it's supposed to be? Because it's each and every one of them.
Yeah, it is a very fickle word.
I hate the English language.
Well, it might be a scenario of like maybe and maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Every one of us, and every space one is a pronoun. Okay, so the pronoun everyone, which is the one word, meaning every person, is spelled as one word.
Yeah.
Everyone had a great time at the party. The pronoun every one, with a space in between, meaning each one, is spelled as two words. He visited every one of those countries many times.
So technically, if it's spaced out, it would be saying each and each.
Yeah, each and every one. Yeah, basically each and every one.
So it's.
I feel like it is it
based
compound
on your
word in that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the compound word.
Based on your definition, it sounds like it should be the compound word. Although, like every time I've heard it, I'm pretty sure it's each and every one.
Yeah,
not everyone, but that's just me.
Yeah,
I might be wrong. It's
each and each one. Yeah, I like how yeah. I feel like it's one of those slippery slopes of English language.
Mm-hmm.
That like.
It's just whether or not that is the saying.
Yeah, and the writer has to make a call on that.
Yeah. But yeah, if that's the way that the saying was made, that's how it is, but you don't know. It doesn't matter. They soldiered on, side by side, their determination to put an end to this trumping their growing fear. So I don't know if this should be changed, but when I first read it, I read it like their determination to put an end to this trumping their growing fear.
Yep.
I thought trumping was what they were following.
I thought it was actually a misspelled word. I thought it was like maybe it's triumphing, but I was like, wait, no, there needs to be like a comma or something like that to like break up that, so you know that trumping their fear, is what they're going for. Not because I had the same hiccup. Yeah,
because it's like the trumping is being used to describe what they're following.
Yeah,
so I think it's meant to be their determination to put an end to this, comma, trumping their fear over it.
Okay, I hate to like go back on what I just said, but listening to you do that, it's hard because like.
Well, I'll read it. I'll read it in full.
Yeah.
Soldiering on side by side, their determination to put an end to this trumping their growing fear. That's how it normally is.
That's how you. Yeah.
Then let me read it away.
Yeah.
They soldiered on side by side, their determination to put an end to this trumping their growing fear.
Yes, that's the one with the comma works because it's just like. Yeah, because there needs to be a break there for the emphasis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Moving on to my last one. The first mate and the captain initiating a... Oh, sorry. This isn't a grammar. This is a note.
Okay. So...
That's a note.
Hold off?
I'll put that in later.
Okay. Should you check your notes for grammar?
Maybe I shouldn't have done this like an hour ago.
I woke up this morning to him like sending me a text saying that like he had forgotten what day it was.
I sent him that text too, yeah.
Oh, did you just send it to both of us at the same time?
I sent it to you, then copy pasted it, sent it to him, yes.
So I just mass text.
Yeah, you mean I got the copy paste?
Yeah. You're just copy pasta.
I don't know what to think anymore.
Wow. What
should have like
he's done. At least I have the courtesy to mass text, so like I just pop on like Gamer in Yellow, Mikey, the East Ends for Evils, like your both your phone numbers onto a text and just slap that out.
I don't know how to do that.
Really?
I don't do that.
It's not that hard.
I'm old.
Okay, there, boomer.
It's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we're good. Okay, so on to actual thoughts then. So I'm going to start with this quote. HMS Stargazer and its crew had initially set out into the deep unknown to map uncharted territories, but winter descended quickly upon them, and they found themselves trapped between stars and ice for months. So I would have said that was kind of a long sentence, but because almost a title drop, and only in the second sentence. between ice and stars, not stars and ice.
I have a note on that, but I'm not focusing because I'm trying to copy and paste this in. I just fucked it up. Oh, no.
Okay. Also, I wonder if this was inspired by the HMS Terror occurrence, where basically the HMS Terror and another ship, another equally menacing sounding name, got wrecked in the search for the Northwest Territories, or the Northwest the Northwest Passage in the Arctic, horrifying shit happened, and the ships were wrecked and sunk into the ocean, into the Arctic Ocean, and the people starved to death, and they ate lead-lined they ate meat and food and stuff like that from lead-lined cans, so they died of lead poisoning and insanity. It's actually a whole TV show about it now called the HMS Terror, about the HMS Terror, that takes the actual events and throws a supernatural horror spin onto it. And I thought that was kind of I wonder if this is this story was based off of inspired by that, but then just thrown onto the southern pole rather than the North Pole. And then we get to this part. The sailor took a moment to regain his composure. It was too late. He was already stiff, clutching in his hands that damnable statue. Oh, there's probably a little bit more of inspiration by A Call of Cthulhu or At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft than HMS Terror. Or maybe it's both. I mean, both are Arctic horror events and stories. And just the fact that in Call of Cthulhu, the whole kind of thing is around this statuette that the character finds of Cthulhu. Not gonna lie, until because it just says an anthropomorphic creature and didn't really give us any other details other than that, I kind of just assumed it was an octopoidal headed monster. It was just a Cthulhu statue made of obsidian. Yeah.
Considering most of the time when I hear anthropomorphic, it's usually followed by animal.
Yeah.
Just imagine a furry.
That's the true horror.
Yeah.
No,
it's a statue of Sonic.
Yes. I mean, in 1905, if somebody saw a statuette of Sonic, they'd probably be horrified.
Probably, yeah. I'd be horrified now.
Yeah. What creature is this? What blasphemous beast is that?
Specifically the pre-fix on the movie.
Yes, exactly. The original version.
Yes.
Not the better version. But anyway, not to date this podcast.
Whatever.
My next one. Unless you had something about that previous... Did you actually have something about that previous comment?
About the title drop?
Yeah.
No, just
the near title drop?
Just that it's not technically a straight up title drop because the sentence doesn't end with the title. It says stuff after it too.
Yeah, okay. But yeah. Alright, on to my next quote to comment on. The bay was in a state of disarray. Crates were broken, sacks were cut open, barrels were flung across the room, and the floor was ridden with stray apples, potatoes, and an assortment of vegetables, fruits, and meats. Most distressingly, John's body had vanished. Okay, so out of all of this, the body vanishing is not the weirdest thing to me. I kind of expected it as they were waiting at the gravesite.
Yeah.
All right, they're waiting until they didn't. The body's gone.
Of course.
No, the weird part for me is that no one on that ship heard the commotion that happened in this room.
Depends on how far away the cargo bay is from everything else.
Fair, but this ship, I assume, and I know what that means, given the time frame and scant descriptors we do get of the ship, because we don't get a lot of description of the ship other than it's the HMS Terror or the HMS Stargazer, and it has sails maybe.
Yeah,
but that honestly is also a phrase rather him die under or be resting under Her Majesty's sails, kind of, or her country's sails. It's a term for sailors. It doesn't mean that the ship has sails necessarily. But I'm assuming since it's 1905,
and it's a wooden ship.
It is a wooden ship. Yeah. Okay, well, all the floor. Yeah, exactly. All the floors are wood, and wood is a very good conductor or a very good sound resonator and conductor. Mm-hmm. So, assuming it is a wooden ship, and even otherwise, ships aren't super sound isolated or insulated. Isn't how did no one else hear that commotion going on? That honestly was the weirdest thing about that whole bit was how did no one notice a barrel's being thrown across the room, everything going flying? So I feel there should have been a descriptor earlier, while they were sleeping that night, because apparently it was a restless night kind of thing. There should have been like the howling of the wind, like through the ship, just to kind of like help hide the fact that like that commotion was happening.
I mean, it doesn't say that stuff was like thrown. How would they know?
No, it did. I literally read that. Crates were broken, sacks were cut open, barrels were flung across the room, and the floor was ridden with stray apples. Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, someone could have just rolled a barrel across the room.
Flung.
I know what it says, but seeing it after the fact, you don't know what happened in there.
Yeah, but I mean, the way that...
But regardless, there's broken barrels, so that makes noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that I feel like the commotion could have been easily concealed with like if the addition of like howling winds at the night before was added, just to like kind of... It's a nitpick, I know, but it was like, that was the weirdest thing of that whole scene, was not the vanishing body.
No.
The fact that no one heard that. The commotion.
It's fine.
So, on to my next one. The dully illuminated... I'm pretty sure that's not what you would use for the...
Dully?
Yeah,
like,
I would have also gone like the dully lit, but... The dully illuminated room just... Anyways, that's actually not my comment. So.
Lit and illuminated are like the same word.
Yeah. So the dully illuminated room was a scene of unfathomable horror. 5 sailors were huddled in a circle, raving in unpronounceable tongues. The one at the top of the circle wore a tight leather bag over his head, while the rest sported piercings of teeth across their face. Behind them, propped up against the wall, was the corpse of John. I almost said Jabba. Of John Hopkins. Well, that escalated quickly. That statue was here for like what, a day, and it already indoctrinated part of the crew. And then, as you read, in fact, most of the crew has been indoctrinated mentally or psychologically by this thing's power. It's like, wow. I don't know. It's just like, it's something about the story was kind of like going slow and like creeping and stuff like that, and then they
shit hit the fan.
Just open a door and like it's straight up like all the shit's getting real. Mm-hmm. So. That was my comment on that. The next one, actually, this is my last actual thought before we go into final thoughts. Teetering on the brink of madness, Dr. Philip Edgar ran into the snowstorm, his screams echoing in this frozen antechamber of hell until the eternal night claimed him. So this is my response to the story as a whole here.
So it sounds like final thoughts.
It's an actual thought. It's my last actual thought.
Actual final thoughts.
Yes.
Not a final thought.
I still have final thoughts after this.
Right.
So that story, that was, like, after reading that, this was my thought. That was, in a word, Lovecraftian as fuck. This story has all the beats of a story by old Howie. Hell, this could easily be used as a Call of Cthulhu game scenario. Like, you could easily be the captain, Ward, the doctor, maybe the cook. The cook failed his reflex check and got eaten alive by by a bunch of the raving cultists.
Yeah,
like we've got, like it's got everything a Lovecraft story should have. Isolation in a alien hostile environment, i.e. the Antarctic Circle. It's in Antarctica, which a handful or one or two stories of
a handful. 1 or 2. I don't think there's any.
No, At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft, one of his novelettes or novels, was straight up in like Antarctica. I'm pretty sure he's mentioned other ones mentioned Antarctica in other ones. But regardless, like it's a cold, isolated place. It's there. The cult, like the indoctrination by the statuette, the discovery of the statuette after finding one of your friends dead. The little cult circle and shit like that in the ship itself, that discovery and stuff with the light, and like it was almost going amnesia levels or like penumbra levels, which in itself is inspired by Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. The fact that the entire crew has become like suddenly indoctrinated into its crazy psychological enthrallment. Them attempting to right the wrong by bringing it back to its original place. The use of Cyclopean to describe the civilization that created the tomb and like the creatures themselves, and then the ending like crescendo of like this giant, massive monstrosity breaking through the ice and going into the sky as other ones come down earthbound. It was just like, yeah, this is straight up a Lovecraft story if I ever heard one. And I will get more into that in my final thoughts regarding like this story and like my feelings on it. So, but first,
is it bad that through that entire monologue, the thing that I have to ask a question on is: are you really that buddy with Lovecraft that you can call him Howie? I think you called him.
I mean, that is his nickname. In the fan circles.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware.
I mean, he's like been dead like what 100 years, like whatever.
Is he though? Is he?
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably.
Maybe. It's possible.
No, it's not.
Anyway. So, Mikey, what do you got?
All right. I'm going to touch on a couple of things that have already been sort of touched on, but not really.
But fuck it.
We need padding.
So, I've got a few quotes here. Blah, 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 blah.
Really?
That's not the kind of padding we need.
Sounds like somebody's speaking in indescribable tongues.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, you speak in English just so people can understand you.
Yeah.
Supplies were running thin, and the captain of the ship, a tall and clean-shaven gentleman by the name of Gerald Northington, had assembled groups of hunters to venture out in search of seal meat. Next quote. Feet dragging across the floor and faces stooped low and haggardly, the crew gathered in their dining area for a miserable breakfast of dry bread and olive paste.
Yeah.
Then, after in the storage bay, crates were broken, sacks were cut open, barrels were flung across the room, and the floor was ridden with stray apples, potatoes, an assortment of vegetables, fruits, and meats.
We know where you're going.
We know where you're going. I think the audience knows where you're going with this.
Just in case, though.
Yeah, just in case.
Supplies were not running low.
They weren't running low in the short run. In the long run, yes, they were probably running low. They were trying to make their food keep. Like, as long as they could.
But
like, they didn't have enough for the entire season to wait out the winter.
Yeah, they couldn't wait out like until the ice thawed out a little bit so they could get out. But like, that's why they were running thin. It was like they were basically like trying to like keep their food like tight.
It's worded weird.
Yeah. But things like fruits and vegetables and
I will admit that is a poor
you
choice.
would eat it first because it goes bad.
Not when it's refrigerated and they're in the middle of the fucking Antarctic. So
it still goes bad though.
I don't think it would go that bad that quickly. Like, as long as it's kept cold, and that's the reason why they brought the body down to that storage base so they would keep for a little while longer. I'm not entirely fighting you on this because like the addition of like potatoes and apples and meat on the ground, I feel like was probably a bad call. Like maybe like the hay, maybe like hay or salt of some kind or something like that was strewn across the ground, like from the barrels, like where they have preservatives or like packing straw or something like that. Maybe that would have been a better option so that you don't have that much food apparently just lying around.
It's weird that they had like that shitty breakfast. Meanwhile, all that shit was in the storage.
Yeah.
That they could have had.
Well, that was their morning. Like maybe that's what they're allowed for, like their morning rations, and then during lunch or dinner they're allowed like an apple or meats and stuff like that.
Maybe.
But yeah, it is. Throughout the story, there is a little bit of poor wording in terms of like how scarce the food is, or like it's not properly elaborated on. Like, just how, like, why they're like how, like, in what condition of scarcity their food is. Like, is it long term or short term? Because to me, I feel like they're basically the reason why there's all that food in the storeroom is because basically that they're trying to keep what food they have going as long as they can. That's why they're eating like bread and olive paste. But yes.
So so it just struck me as odd. It's like it's running the supplies are running thin, yet there's supplies that are clearly there.
Yeah.
So
also, since this is 1905, I assume that the meat that they have there is probably salted.
Yeah.
So it's probably like basically jerky at that point.
Yeah.
So that'll keep for a long time. So they might be going after like seal meat for the fresh meat, so they don't have to take from their stores just yet. But again, not entirely fighting you on it. Just I'm fighting you on it a little bit.
And now for the silly portion.
Oh, good.
Where not long after, there's this quote. After a fruitless search for the body...
But there was fruit!
Oh, I hate the English language.
That's the worst.
So I'm taking up Aklo.
Do it. Yeah. Yeah. Good call.
I just have to grow that third or fourth tongue.
Well, you already have a second?
I'm working on it.
Oh.
Bleh.
Got some title card material now.
Yeah. Just gonna be a tongue coming out of the darkness. Like twin tongues.
No,
or like
one normal one and a little
like
stubby
small
one.
stubby
Yeah,
one, yeah.
There you go. Anyway.
Yes.
Alright. So, my next comment here is in regards to the monster at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually stated in the comments underneath that the third eye on the monster...
Suddenly being like having a pupil and also being like a human-like eye?
Yeah, it doesn't really add anything.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I thought it was actually something. I thought, like, I like the monster's description, like how it's displayed in this game, or displayed in the story. Sorry, I'm thinking it's a Cthulhu game.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way it's described, it almost, you know what it reminded me of? Reminded me of a fucking Zelda boss a little bit when it had like the third eye that was like kind of like a human pupil. Because like, oh, there's the weak point, Doctor. Just throw a snowball at it. You'll get it for a massive damage. But yeah, no, it seemed like a little like too human for like the rest of it, because all the other eyes of these aliens, of these creatures, have been described as like complete, like basically glowing white eyes, and then there's just one nodule that has an eye that's like human-like.
But also at the very end, you see that it has the ability to change the way its eye looks.
That is true, yeah. Because like when the captain shows up, honestly, I liked how that like there was that fake out. It's like, oh, was that all just like in the like Doctor's head when he like fell down or something on the ice, and then he catches wind of like the eyes like being inhuman, and then like he blinks and he switches back, and it's like, oh, that's a nice little twist. But yeah, it does show that the creatures are capable of like fooling us essentially.
Yeah.
So,
and the tentacle eye could be different to the eyes on the actual face because it has a different purpose.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
Like causing insanity or something.
Like maybe that is like, not an earthbound appendage or like an earthy appendage. Whereas like the other eyes they serve as ocular vision, but of like a different type of sensory. Like you know how like our eyes are ultraviolet spectrum, or no. Are our eyes ultraviolet? Or no, it's not ultraviolet. No, it's not ultraviolet.
It's between ultraviolet and infrared.
Yeah, it's between ultraviolet and infrared. Their eyes might be of a different like type of light spectrum, or like they can detect something else with the normal glowing eyes, and then that eye is actually for the ultraviolet and infrared spectrum. Like you were saying, like it might be purposed differently.
Yeah,
like there are like different there are different types of eyes in animals, even on Earth, that sort of have different purposes and like see differently.
Yep. Surprisingly plausible.
But when the rest of it, it does kind of look a little goofy, or a little like out, like just like I don't know, like again, like I said, I thought I kind of saw it almost like a Zelda boss monster, like an anglerfish thing with an eyeball. But
I saw it as a means for the Doctor to know that it's staring at him.
That's true,
like for sure, because it has a pupil. Yeah,
that's clearly dilating and looking at him, and then it moves away because it's a Lovecraft monster. So it's just like, you are a puny and insignificant thing to the power of the Force. As it flies away.
Is it where the Jedi get all their power?
I'll tell you later about like my ideas of like turning Star Wars into a Lovecraft story.
Cool.
And where the Force is actually an eldritch horror from beyond time and space. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
No.
Yeah. And then I sort of like the twist for me anyway, because I haven't read Lovecraft.
Yeah.
But when the body went missing, I was expecting it to become the monster a la The Thing.
Yeah. No, this has the thing about The Thing is that it was also based a lot on Lovecraft stories at the Mountains of Madness and such. It was also based off of a book from the 70s or 60s. Future me, correct me if I'm wrong.
Close, but no cigar. Who Goes There, the novel that inspired The Thing from Another World, and then The Thing by John Carpenter, was in fact published in August of 1938. And the author was John W. Campbell. Sorry, cultist.
Which is basically the same plot as this, like an alien crash. They discover a crashed alien in Antarctica, and it has like weird abilities and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like The Thing is very Lovecraftian in terms of its cosmic horror.
So I was expecting a monster that didn't end up being a monster. It ended up just staying a dead corpse. And then there was a cult and ancient aliens.
Yes.
Is that better or worse than what you thought it was going to be, then?
He did say he liked the twist.
Well, it stopped itself from becoming the thing.
Yeah. Like, it made its own thing.
Yeah.
By not being the thing.
Hate the Slayers. Hate it.
Yeah, so that's my thoughts.
Alrighty then.
All right, gamer. In the hour before recording that you read this.
No, I put a lot of prep work into this. Shut up.
Actually, if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm actually very amazed how much grammar acquisition you had in
how much
hour,
time,
in how little time, and you caught stuff that we didn't really look at.
Yeah, I have to get a new keyboard. My keyboard burned out. Set the keys on fire. All right, so.
You gave your keyboard carpal tunnel syndrome? You gave your keyboard carpal tunnel syndrome?
No, it literally caught on fire from me hitting the keys so fast.
You were typing 80 miles an hour?
Yeah, exactly.
88 miles per hour, I'm sorry.
It's fine. Either way. The sailor bore a singular mark of inexorable insanity. Mm-hmm. So... I don't know if that's the right word to describe this.
Which one? Inexorable?
Sailor. No, yeah, inexorable.
Sailor.
He's not a sailor. He's really a seaman.
Oh. Okay, sorry. What was the word actually?
Inexorable.
Yeah, inexorable.
Yeah. I looked it up. It means impossible to stop or prevent. So I learned a thing. Cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that really works here.
So, can you say it in the sentence again?
The sailor bore the singular mark of inexorable insanity, with wide eyes open, mouth agape, his face carved into a mask of abyssal dread.
Okay, so it's describing the insanity on his face.
On his face, yes.
And what was the definition again?
Impossible to stop or prevent. How would they know that his insanity was impossible to stop?
Okay, yeah, you got me there. I could maybe bullshit that, like, his insanity stemmed from, like, something that was, like, inevitable to stop or prevent, like, in front of him.
Yeah, but...
Like, it was, like...
For all they know, all he had to do was say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious before it touched him, and then he would have been fine.
That's true, yeah.
Like, how do they know that it's impossible to stop?
Yeah, this is... Yeah, fair. And this is what happens when you try to use a lot of really crazy, elaborate words to try and mimic Lovecraft stories, because sometimes you don't get it sounds cool, but the definition might not always be the right one you're looking for.
Unless I'm looking at it in the wrong way. But as far as I can tell, it's a little bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, that's I think where it's coming from, is that it's a little bit of a stretch
to
use that word for that. Other than I think the reason, like, why it was used is because it's a nice, big, elaborate word that sounds cool for that moment. But
it does.
It's a stretch to try and, like, is that actually is that actually a word you want to use? I mean, Lovecraft used those kind of words in his because he was literally being paid by the letter.
Oh, really?
Usually they were paid by the letter or by the word. So that's why he used, like, antediluvian and gibbous moon and
makes all massive
these,
words.
All these, like, $100 words because he was paying like a cent a letter or like 5 cents a word for his writing.
That's why some of those creatures have, like, massive names.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, moving on though. The doctor steeled himself and lit his lantern, the light sending flickering shadows dancing up the walls. and walked down the way he thought the figures outside his door had gone. So it wasn't really said that he saw figures outside the door, just that he heard some sort of alien
something.
whispers.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose the whispers could be assumed that they came from some sort of figure, especially since in the time frame they're in, it's not like he would assume it was from a speaker or magic or anything.
Yeah.
But it still kind of jarred me that he assumed that there was something right outside his door.
He also heard footsteps, not just whispers.
Oh yeah, the crab thing.
Yeah, the things that the footsteps that then they colorfully described as like crabs dancing down the road.
Yes.
Which you know what's funny? Like I see it as the creepy thing in my mind, but I also keep going to that GIF of the crabs on the beach just like doing the weird little like shifting dance.
Yeah, I can see it.
God damn it!
It's fun.
Yeah.
But either way, that just made me stumble for a minute because he was hearing voices, but I didn't connect it that he thought that there was actual things out there. Like, because there's some weird alien language and shit, I thought he was almost assuming he was hearing, like, spirits or whatever.
Yeah, but
not a physical entity.
Mm-hmm. But apparently, as the cook confirms later on, like, very shortly after.
What a segue. You heard them too, the cook whispered? Edgar nodded. They went this way, come, the cook urged him on. So, for a second, when I read that, I thought that the cook dropped the whispering, and he just went, they went this way, then yelled, come! Because, like, there's an exclamation point after.
No, it's more like, they
went
this way. Come, let's go, yeah.
Yeah, but still.
Post haste. It's trying to be quiet and whispering, but, like, accentuating the fact that they must hurry.
And I get it, but I think it'd be funny if he's trying to whisper and be quiet, and he's like, let's go!
I understand.
Yes. But yeah.
God damn it! The fucking Sonic commercial keeps like coming out. It's like, of course I want it. I love the way you make them. Like the way they just like yells. Oh fuck.
Oh, Eggman.
You know what, Mr. Dupin? I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you see our title card. I am sorry because I'm probably going to end up drawing an Eldritch horror version of the Sonic character from the first trailer. I think that's probably how I'm going to draw
the thing coming out of
your terrifying horror monster. And I apologize in advance.
It's my fault, honestly.
It really is Gamer's fault.
Yeah.
It's shared. Like the only one that's not at fault here is sweet darling Mikey, the E stands for evil.
I don't know if I would use
However,
those as
he's also
describers.
at fault because he's not stopping us.
You have the power to stop us
He
from
is, in
happening.
fact, being evil and watching this go from the sidelines.
The best kind of evil.
Sure, if you say so.
Yeah.
But moving on. So, my next note is about when the first mate and the captain go down to the seance going on in the basement, all that, and their scorched earth policy that they initiate as soon as they see shit happen.
I mean, like, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would, and that's my point. Good on them.
Yeah.
That, like, it's nice to see characters not written poorly just for the sake of the plot.
Not gonna lie, that is straight up, like, so this is something like this is the part where the story kind of transitions from a Lovecraft story to a Call of Cthulhu game scenario.
Yeah.
Where the player is just like, nope, bang, roll sand. All right. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, and the other guy tried rolling sand. He's just like,
Yeah. All right. Fight, flight, or freeze. I'll just freeze. All right, cool. So you were frozen there and then as Ward
beats the shit out of everything.
Like kills everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and you were grappled. So roll your grappling. All right, so you got grappled. So you're going to use the butt of your gun as a melee weapon and start beating the shit out of this thing. All right, it's dead. Cool. Yeah, no, it's basically a fucking game scenario.
Yeah, you could straight up run it letter to letter.
Yeah,
it's pretty excellent. But yes, and then moving on to describing what the rest of the newly possessed sailors are doing when they're trying to leave.
Yeah,
it says while others were simply leering behind a fish-eyed mask.
Yeah, so that's.
I'm sorry.
So fish-eyed mask, it's a metaphor. For their eyes are like going off in different directions, like a fisheye.
Okay, because this is the second mention of a mask. The first one, I assumed it was just to describe his face.
Yes,
but this one's like
straight up. It is basically like because you can describe somebody's face like if it looks weird, so as a mask.
Yeah.
So that's how they're described. That's how what is actually you're reading right now is like basically their eyes are like gone in different directions as they become enthralled or possessed by the power of the statuette.
Yeah, and I got that assumption the first time, but when he brought it up the second time, I'm like staring behind a fish-eyed mask.
Yeah.
It's like, does he just have a mask all of a sudden?
Nope.
Okay, good. That fixes it then.
Yeah. Usually, also when they do use a mask, it means that it's like basically like stuck in that position. So like they're like it's like somebody coming in who's like
their face
like, and they're not like it's just not moving or reacting.
I love that you do the visual jokes too. You give me a hard time for doing them, like when I laid down last time.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was necessary for slaying purposes.
Yes.
Anyways, but moving on to the entrance of the cave. The entrance, much akin to the maw of a great beast, with stalactite teeth and jaws made of rock, swallowed them whole. Literally? Like, did the cave close?
No,
I know.
To quote Taserface, it is metaphorical. It strikes fear into the hearts of enemies.
Should not be quoting Taserface. God damn it. But yes, I get it that it's...
Yeah. It's a metaphor. It's poetry. Like it's
but it also could have not been.
I know. I understand.
It has dual meaning. Like, they could have went
That's
to turn...
kind of the horror of it. Like, for the readers, like, really? Is this what happened?
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, okay, good.
Like they turn around to leave and they just see the stalactites and mites together where they came in. It's like, okay, we need to find the rectum now and get out of here.
It's kind of like it's like, because like when you're reading something, it's like you are trying to like, you're assuming that the writer or like the narration is a reliable narrator. But in this story, like in horror stories, sometimes the narrator, the guy, the writing itself, is an unreliable narrator trying to help build up that psychological horror.
Yeah.
Element. So,
and I do appreciate the flavor of that. I'm not saying that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if it actually closed behind them or not.
You just got caught off on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can swallow without closing your mouth.
Yeah, it's true. Moving right along, though.
I mean, that's true. I suppose. Yeah, okay, my last one. Where the giant head breaks through the ice, and the tentacle eye, and summoning his quote-unquote children through the meteors, and the puppeted body of the captain. At this point, I feel like it went too far. Like, for me, I think, like, my enjoyment of the story went up and up and up, and then as soon as he left the cave, and that thing broke out of the ice, it kind of just...
It did get a little too epic.
It kind of just sharply dropped, in my opinion. I would have loved it if he just ran away out of the cave and then copy and paste to the very end where he's like just wandering through the
like
ice to
he
his
slips
death.
on the ice and then the captain like goes to pick him up and like, oh, did he like actually like get like, has this all the other shit been just a dream? And then like again like realize him seeing the eye change and then go running off. Yes, I feel like that would be a little bit more of a good subdued horror. I feel like again this kind of feels like a Call of Cthulhu scenario in that the characters are dealing with one threat, like one like kind of pretty potent threat. Like those two guys are not unsubstantial. Like those two big monsters in the cave are pretty fucking monstrous and like horrible and horrifying for an encounter. But and then like when he runs out into the ice, the Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep's like bloody tongue avatar shows up. And the apocalypse happens essentially. I did find that was a little weird. I'm not sure. Like maybe that was like partially like in his head. Like maybe that was like a vision that he had, but it's not really said. Yeah. So it does kind of like feel like basically like the character is living in the end times at this point. So it's like again, it's like a worldwide TPK.
It's too like world-endingly powerful.
It's also not entirely un-Lovecraftian. Because there's a couple of Lovecraft stories that do that as well. Yeah. He's infamous for basically anticlimactic endings. Mm-hmm. So...
I don't know, it's just for me, it's like... Yeah. The tension kind of went less and less the more...
Grandiose it went. Yeah. At this point, we have entered... It stopped... So, like, the cave stuff was kind of... And I know I'm probably going to give some people some mannerisms with this term. The cave setting was street-level... cosmic horror compared to the big bombastic scene on the ice, which is straight up cosmic horror, where like the uncaring, monolithic sized monstrosities from beyond time and space are unleashed upon the Earth, and the Earth is doomed. Like,
But for
that
what
is literally cosmic horror.
Also, what do they even have to do with each other? Like,
That's the other thing. That's the one little nugget of like thinking on it now. It's like they really don't, because they're not really described as the same. Like, unless the
did
other
they like do fusion and then become that?
Maybe. And like the creatures themselves could also be like a servitor race. Like maybe they were the high priest and priestess. Because I got the impression the white sarcophagus one was a female and the black sarcophagus one was a male.
I didn't.
But that was just
one was just tall and lanky. One was just tall and buff.
Again, that was just my kind of assumption on it. But yeah, like. So I feel like they were like basically the high priests of that big thing, maybe. But that was the only correlation I could get out of story and out of game, as to why there was a connection between them. Also, the only other thing I could think of was like maybe that's why they kept mentioning the frozen lake in front beside the cave, was because that's why the cave was there in the first place. Again, it's a lot of like thinking beyond the story and speculating like where the connections was, because otherwise it does kind of seem like the big monster on the in the ice kind of comes out of nowhere. Like after like dealing with the stuff in the cave, you thought that's going to be the big horror. Nope, it's actually this bigger thing. Just shows
It's always
up.
a bigger fish.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I also don't know how those creatures didn't just get out of the sarcophaguses themselves.
They were
Because all
probably
they did was just push it.
they were probably in some kind of stasis until like they were exposed to the oxygen or something. Or
Maybe.
or they were just waiting for somebody. Like they've just been slumbering until somebody disturbs their sarcophagus physically.
Or like they were sitting down having like a game of chess.
Yeah.
And then they heard someone get in their cave. It's, oh shit! Get in the sarcophagus!
Oh, this will be so funny, guys.
It's not sarcophagi, it's sarcophagus. Shut up and get in it!
What? I guarantee these fucking hairless apes are gonna come in here and push the lid over. Man, it's gonna be funny as hell. Yeah.
I don't know if I like or dislike that we're taking all of these creatures and making them stupid.
You know what?
With our...
Personally, I want more cosmic horror games or more cosmic horror stories where the monster is just as incompetent as a human.
Yeah.
Because I think that's just as scary. It's like my comment of like how I think it would be awesome if the Migo, the guys that take people's brains and like toss them in jars, do that thinking they're helping us.
Yeah.
Because that's how they travel through space. So why can't we travel through space like they do?
Yeah.
Like, why are you screaming? Like, I'm just gonna mute your vocal box
Until you calm down. Yeah.
Until you get your shit together.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work in everything. Because, for example, if you're getting chased by some creature that you don't know, and you're running through the forest, and you trip on a root and fall.
Yeah.
And you get up and run, and then it trips on the same root and falls.
Well, see, here is, and again, this is also in lies the difference between comedy and horror. Like they are basically two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
The reason why horror is horror and not a comedy is because of context. We don't know why they were in those sarcophaguses. We don't know why they were waiting in those sarcophaguses. That's what makes them scary, is the fear of the unknown.
But because we made up our stupid story
It's
of
now
them
comedy.
setting up a trap, now it's
become,
comedy.
yeah, because we've insinuated that into this like little mini canon of the story. That we've made it a comedy.
Yeah.
But taking it as face value is like not ignoring that ignoring
seeing
that
it from
stuff.
the eyes of the people coming in.
Exactly, yeah. Encountering it. That's the horror. Because you have no context to that. Because if you were in that situation, or if you were in like the situation where you came to somebody's house and you open like there's a big long box in their living room and you just opened it and they were like they came out mutated or something like that. That would be fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
Unless they were like waiting for you to come into their house and then they just like jumped in the box and like started giggling. Like, this would be so funny.
Yeah.
Like that's comedy. Like that's something that's comedy. But that's the difference between horror and comedy is the context, and that's why Lovecraft delved so deeply into like fear of the unknown because it made his stuff so alien and weird looking and like horrific. He never explained their true intentions and origin because they are so alien to human minds and physiology.
Yeah.
So. In this, it makes sense for a horror story, like that they they were just there waiting, or maybe like they just need to be disturbed in order to actually wake up. Mm-hmm. So they were waiting for the right time, and the right time is when somebody pushes their lid open, or maybe the reason why Ward opened it is because one of them told maybe they can't get out themselves. It needs to be opened for them.
Use like mind trickery stuff.
Yeah, maybe there's a ward on the very inside of the lid, so that when somebody
ward.
Yeah. Sorry, a sigil.
I hate things like
protective sigil.
Yeah.
that keeps them from like opening it themselves once they're in the box. So they've been waiting for somebody, and then they can still like psychically project out. So they basically psychically told Ward, "Hey, you should open this box," and that's what happened. It's kind of it's very similar to like the new Mummy movie that came out with Tom Cruise, where like the one character gets bitten by like a special scarab, and then or by a special scorpion thing, and then gets possessed by the mummy inside the sarcophagus to open it up and then kill everybody on the plane.
Yeah. Well then.
Yeah. So
neat.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, basically, what it gets down to, like, you're not wrong. Like,
it's all about perspective.
But it's all about perspective. It's all about the context of, like, are you creating a horror story or are you creating a comedy story?
Yeah. And they can both be the same story, just from different perspectives.
Yeah. And they can both be funny and terrifying at the same time.
Yes.
Because again, I think that would be terrifying if they were just as incompetent or just trying to, like, basically this is their take of a joke.
Yeah.
A practical joke. But yeah. And yeah, I do agree, like, the ending does kind of escalate. Actually, that seems to be my thing in the story. It's like, well, that escalated quickly with the cult in the like munching on the or like using the body parts of Jacob, and then he gets out of the cave. That escalated quickly. Like, yeah. It almost feels like that big massive part was just supposed to be like kind of a vision, or maybe it was just like to extend to further add on to the whole like cosmic horror element of the story. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like you probably could have like left that out, and it would have been just as strong, because those two monsters in the cave are not unformidable like horror monsters. Mm-hmm. But anyway, sorry. Anything else to go?
And yeah, the only other thing I'm thinking about is like, is the rest of the crew just hanging out in the ship right now?
Probably, yeah. They're probably just like they were basically enthralled, so they're basically like zombie husks, like just watching and waiting. Probably.
The way I thought it worked is it's to do with being within radius of the statue.
Oh, so maybe like once they got without rage, it basically
went back normal.
It snapped, and they were like, "What?" Huh? Like they're kind of in a daze. Like,
why do I have this fish mask on?
Why do I have teeth piercings?
Those guys all died. Those guys all died real good.
Hey, where's Jimmy and Tom and Bootless Jack and and Phil and Steve? Like, where'd they all go?
Yeah.
And where's the captain and the doctor and Ward? Like, where? Oh, I think I see them off in the tunnel. Why are they running away from the ship?
Let's go save them.
Get down to the... Oh, God!
Or, like, when it breaks through, it's doing all that, but they don't see that. If that's all in that guy's mind. Yeah. So that he sees these horde of people coming towards him, and he's through his insanity, he thinks that this thing is just, like, vomiting out enemies.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's what he's, like, that's where that is. Like, that's the rest of the crew. Because, again, like, that could be, like, what happened. Like, that literally could... Like, we have an unreliable narrator here, in that could be what had actually happened. Like, everything from like before the cave, like everything before they entered the cave, like everything after the events of them entering that cave, could have just been that the doctor slipped on the ice in the frozen lake, and this has all been a fever dream.
Honestly, it could go back even further.
Oh yeah,
because he handled the body.
That's true. Yeah,
like it could have fucked with him from the get-go.
Yeah,
like even the first. In the basement, murdering all the guys. You can't get past that.
that had to have happened. Yeah. Like, but it could this could have been how it affected him, like how the statue had affected him.
Yeah,
because it didn't seem to affect him, the captain, or Ward.
Yes, because they have they're
player
PCs.
Yeah, they're player characters. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. They're the three characters. They're the three players of the game. They have free will. Mm-hmm. And then he just rolled his sand check really bad, rolled up basically rolled against Cthulhu and got like maybe like 40 sand loss in one go.
Pretty much.
So
on to final thoughts.
I guess so. Yeah. So my final thoughts for this, the story feels detailed yet skimmed. Like there's loving description, practically and macabrely poetic in scenes, like in descriptions. Yeah. Yet there are sections of the story that seem to go by really quickly, or just
and escalate quickly, as you say.
They just speed by, basically. Like you just kind of skim through sections. It doesn't completely ruin the read. Actually, while reading the story, I was like, I took note of them, and kept reading because I was really enthralled with the story, much like the crewmen of the Enthralled by the Statuette.
Of course.
Hey, segue. Made it funny, kind of. I'll just leave.
I love the dead silence from me, Mikey.
Yeah. But it does feel... so it does feel like a sliver rushed in parts as I was reading the story, and that's what I took note of. It didn't ruin the story for me, but I still like that. Otherwise, I really did enjoy this tale of madness and cosmic horror. It's funny that the last story we discussed from MrDupin of Blood, Gold, and Holy Light was bathed in gothic horror and traipsed with like basically dark fantasy D&D, like perilous, like basically adventure of perilous, like werewolf hunting and stuff like that, and they ended with the TPK kind of thing.
Yeah, we also compared that one to a game.
Yeah, to a D&D game.
Yeah.
Or to like, I could totally see that game, like now that I've like read like part of it, I could see that being run in Zweihander, which is basically a grim and perilous, like Warhammer style, like dark fantasy stuff. And this oozes Lovecraftian horror and like Call of Cthulhu, the RPG. And what's great is while it pulls from those inspirations of that genre of like cosmic horror, of Lovecraftian horror, it makes its own thing. It's not just a carbon copy of the Mountains of Madness or The Thing or the HMS Terror or Call of Cthulhu. It is its own take on those tropes and genre. Like those monsters, I've never seen. I personally never read anything like those creatures. And like the red streaks down upon the sky and stuff like that, like that seems like an original creature to me. I could be wrong. If somebody knows, like, has heard the story, like, I would like to read that story that they come from.
So I think the red streaks in the sky were just the comets coming down.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the red streak, yeah, but those are the creatures basically, like the Reapers coming down.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were describing like he was creating these like streak-like portals.
No, he's basically calling down like his brethren or his sisters or whatever. But yeah, like the creatures in the sarcophaguses, like I've never really like the way they're described, and they are described like
lightly.
They're described lightly, but that's part of the allure of cosmic horror is that you're not supposed to get all the details on them because you can't comprehend them by their nature. You're not supposed to be able to. They're unnameable. They're undescribable. Even though Lovecraft would use like eldritch and antediluvian and Cyclopean, like, descriptions.
What's Cyclopean even mean?
Cyclopean means very large, like monolith, like basically behemoth-sized, like enormous size.
Oh, okay. I figured it was either a size thing or like Cyclopean as in like Cyclops. Like one eye.
Well, that's where it comes from.
Well, I mean one eye specifically.
No, it stems from like being giant.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is obvious, guys, but I recommend the story because this was... I feel like this came from somebody who really appreciates the genre of horror that they're writing. And I really... At least I felt that in the writing of the story. Like, in reading the story, like, I felt that kind of, like, passion for this kind of thing. Much like I'd kind of gotten that from, like, A Blood, Gold, and Holy Light with gothic horror. It's like, it seems like the character... it seems like the author really loves those genres and like kind of poured that into their stories. So yeah, I recommend, despite its flaws, I recommend the story. So, Mikey, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you about the whole description and the non-description stuff because I noticed that in parts too, where like how they describe how they go cave spelunking to get to their room.
Yeah, and like tears at their skin and clothes and stuff like that.
And then...
like walking from the tundra, like walking from the ship to the cave is just like... And they just,
we got there.
We got there, yeah. There's no like biting cold or... Because like, it was snowing and cold and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's doing that the whole time. Yeah. So nothing out of the ordinary happened between A and B. So why would you need to bring it up, right?
Fair. Or like when they like I also like when they go down when they're in the land when the two of them, the cook and the doctor, are down with the lanterns and go down, like spending all this time describing like the creeping dark and like them going down into the bowels of the ship, and then they open the door and the monster and the cultists are there and they just unleash on them. It's like, whoa, and this is escalating. Like that part there almost seemed kind of skimmed, or at least sped up, not skimmed because like it doesn't skimp on details, but it seems like it speeds up scenes a little bit.
I feel like there was a missing monologue there by the bagman. Like
the captain and Ward grab the statue, get the vision of the cave, and they instantly know they have to take it back to the cave to get rid of it. Like, I don't know, just at that point specifically, it seemed like it was just kind of speeding up the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
But
that being said, if it didn't, I wouldn't have got this read in time.
yeah, well, that's you. That's on you, sir. That's not
so
on
in my eyes, it's perfect that it's sped around along.
I mean, like for a creepypasta, like it's sometimes what you want in a creepypasta is like something that's short and scary.
Yeah,
or short and interesting at the very least. Like it's hard to scare me, or to scare somebody sometimes. But like, even if your story is like going for creepy, but create something cool and interesting, or to somebody who is not easily scared, that's just as much a bonus as scaring your reader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the only real big issue I had was the whole storage-based scenario with the food everywhere. When
the lack of food during a food storage.
MrDupin, you just ruined your story by adding way too much food for these starving sailors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see, they're transporting food, so that's not their food.
Yeah,
that's their cargo. So they can't eat that.
They got to fend for themselves otherwise.
Yeah,
it's really a poor situation. But again, that's the 1905, so that's the early 20th century in a nutshell. It's just
so their actual food that they have to eat is running short, and then they might have to eventually get into the food cargo.
But then they'll start losing money because they're eating from their.
But they'll not die, which is more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also liked how only one character dies. Like, I know it sounds weird, but like,
I beg your pardon,
Jacob. I mean, before all the weird shit happened, all the crazy shit happens.
Like a lot of people died.
I thought it was interesting that like they hadn't lost anybody until the weird shit happened. Like they were stuck in the ice for like a period of time beforehand, and they actually hadn't lost anybody yet. And it wasn't until Jacob goes, basically everything goes to shit.
It sounded like the first time they went out to go hunt seals, this happened. The first time this happened, when they went out to go hunt seals to get food, this happened.
Yeah.
So they're stuck for like a couple of days and no one died.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seemed like, yes, there's a 3 or 4 person kill count rate, or I guess a 9-person kill count.
Are you counting the guys in the
I was
basement?
counting the cultists, yeah.
Okay.
But like everybody else is fine, just kind of partially enthralled or possessed on the ship by the end of this.
And they're none the wiser too. They don't even know any of this shit happened.
And I mean,
until they go downstairs and clean up the basement.
if the big eldritch horror from the ice is actually real and not just a psychosis from the doctor,
then
the entire world is cooked. Because apparently the Reapers have come.
Pretty much, yeah.
But regardless, yeah, like it seemed, I don't know, like it seemed like it was like there was a nice gradual like kill count, I guess, is what I'm going with. I don't know. I'm sorry. I've deviated. What do you got? Continue.
Yeah. So that was my main issue, was just the food.
Yeah.
And thinking about it now, it's like, well, they went seal hunting, so that means they went into that cave to get the idol. So
Jacob went into the cave, yeah.
I don't think they didn't go in there looking for seals.
No.
I think like he was flanking out and like with a team, and he's like he sees a cave and he splits off from that group that was flanking.
Yeah, that's what happened. Like maybe he was psychically pulled in because like the things have some kind of influence, power.
Mm-hmm.
Just envision a seal just going into the cave. It's like, hey, I found a seal, guys. I'll go get them.
Yeah, no, that's not what happened.
Or maybe the monster like tapped into his mind and knew he was looking for seals, so he made him envision a seal.
That could have been it.
There's a seal. I totally saw one go in the cave. You're crazy, Steve. I forget his name.
Jacob,
Jacob, Steve. You're crazy.
It's Jacob Hopkins.
No. Yeah, probably.
It literally is.
I know it is. I'm aware. I'm well aware. That's why I called him Jacob Steve. But it's possible.
Yeah.
These beings are of unknown power.
Yep. And antediluvian age.
And cyclopean size.
If you'd like to know what antediluvian is, because I kind of expected you to ask me what that was. Antediluvian is basically just another biblical term. It's a biblical word for meaning really old, because it's basically like pre-deluge. Mm-hmm. Which is basically the time before the flood.
Oh, okay. So before the first Halo ring was destroyed.
Yes.
Okay.
The odds I'm just nodding.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm just nodding.
Yeah, okay.
So, recommendation, Mikey.
Yeah, please get on.
Before we
Alright.
continue diverging.
Before I find more game references to bring up.
Yes.
So, overall, the story was entertaining, so I will recommend it.
I just wish there was less food during
Well,
the cruise.
yeah.
I just wish they
I-
had corrected that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's got flaws. Like even I
Yeah.
does have some flaws.
Does it help that I said that they're delivering food, but they only have so much food for themselves to eat? Does that make a little bit of sense?
Well,
I said
no.
they were. It straight up says at the beginning of the story that they were exploring uncharted territory in the Antarctic.
Never mind.
They weren't
then.
doing cargo at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so then yeah,
So it's completely null and void.
yeah, that's null.
Okay, but you recommend it regardless of its faults.
Yes.
So yeah.
I enjoyed it as well, reading through it. Like I said, it kind of jumped the shark a little bit at the end. I don't know if that's the right term for that,
Jump
but
to Cthulhu.
sure, yeah, it did that. It went a little too much. It was a little too grandiose and world-ending for my taste. But overall, I still enjoyed it. I hate to say it, but it feels like I should have stopped reading sooner because I would have enjoyed it more.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, because you wish it, like, basically, like, the doctor just, like, noped out of the cave, and that's where it ends.
Yeah, if you noped out and just got lost, and then
Yeah.
the other sailors did a search party and they found his frozen body, and
Yeah.
his face was frozen into that word of terror.
An explorable,
Of terror.
like, sense of insanity or something
Yes.
like that.
Like, I would have preferred that ending over to the world-ending ending that we got now.
That's
But that being said, I still enjoyed it, and I'll still recommend it. It's just I would hard recommend it, if otherwise.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Well, that was this week's episode. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W, because...
My name's too long.
Thank
And it's for the glory of the king.
Yeah. And I'm at Review Cultist. If you'd like to send us emails, you can go to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. Where you can also send us suggestions for other creepypastas you'd like us to discuss on the show. If you'd like to help support the show, you can go to Patreon. Look up Dente Rigamortis and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $5 and $2 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content, all that good stuff. To our patrons that are already helping support the show, thank you guys immensely because you're helping keep the hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that as always. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you guys immensely because seriously, without your listenership or the authorship of these stories, we really wouldn't have much of a show. So thank you guys all the same. Until next time, I've been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.
What?
Did you even have your phone on?
My phone's on. See, it's powered on.
Okay. Don't check it. Calm down, bro.
I know, I'm so angry right now.
Dude, it's gonna be okay. Just chill.
I mean, if you say so.
Man, I can't take this anymore. Just like leave.
Is this opposite day?